Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Online Course Creator Show. It's so good to have you here. If you're new here, welcome. I'm your host, Lou Blakely, and if you've been listening many times over, then welcome back to the show. So today is episode 71, and I'm going to answer a listener question for you. Now, before we get into that, I just wanted to let you know that I'm completely open to answering your questions on the podcast. So if you are a listener and you have a question, just DM me on Instagram and we'll make it happen. My handle on Instagram is @LouBlakely_. So the listener question that I want to address today is, in her own words, as I'm learning so much about creating the launch and even having many launches a year, I'm not understanding what happens when there is a customer who wants to complete the course, but there is not an active launch. I don't want to lose a customer or a sale. So this question actually makes complete sense, and it's a common question. It's one that I've been asked multiple times, actually, usually from within my private coaching. So it is definitely one that I've had in the past. And the funny thing about live launching is it does go against our beliefs, really, or the way that we've been programmed, that we have to have everything for sale all of the time. And if we don't, we're leaving money on the table. So perhaps this is a question that you've had or a thought that you've had as well. So this is a question that I definitely wanted to talk about on the show for that reason, because I think that more of you are going to have this question. Now, there is definitely one group of you, though, that this question is not going to apply to so much, and that's if you are doing a cohort-based course where you're doing your live launch with a specific start date and an end date, and you're actually providing some kind of community support that's only available for that period, or some kind of additional, like you're dripping out the modules 1 week at a time, that kind of thing. So this question isn't going to apply to you. Or if you have a group coaching program, you're doing that in a live setting where you're all moving through the process inside the coaching at the same time. So it is very similar to a cohort-based course, except the function is more of a coaching situation. So if you have a specific start date and you're moving through the material together as a community, then this question is not going to apply to you. But what if your course is more of a self-study course? People could technically join at any time and they could go through it at their own pace anytime. How do you deal with, people that are interested in the course in between launches? So I'm going to cover what I do and why we actually do live launching in a way. So let's dive into it. So why do we use live launching? And specifically, why do we use live launching for a new offer? Because I know that this person hasn't launched yet. Okay, so every online course out there, it needs a campaign and it needs a sales funnel in order to gather enough attention to get buyers. So with any new offer that you're putting out into the world, a live launch is actually vital to get the word out there, as it creates a whole lot of momentum, a whole lot of noise, it generates attention, and it really gets people noticing, versus just sharing an email, 1 or 2 emails and a few social posts. They can easily be missed. But the way, and I don't want to get too much into launch strategy there, but the way a launch strategy or an effective launch strategy is crafted is so that you're hitting multiple points in the customer journey, or in the sales funnel is another way to explain it, as you're moving through the process of the launch. And that is exactly what I teach inside of my programs. And you probably, when you're watching people launch, you probably don't see what is actually going on from the launch strategy side of things. And we can often see a lot of people who are just doing that approach of kind of like spraying and praying, really, putting out heaps of content related to your offer and just like crossing your fingers that people are going to buy. A lot of the time this can look fine from the front end, but on the back end, I've talked to a lot of these people and their sales are not as good as you would think. So you really need a strategic framework involved in that launch, and that is integrating a campaign that gets attention, but you're also integrating that sales funnel approach, and that ultimately is what a live launch is. And the beauty of this is that we get to validate that people actually want to buy our course if it's a new course and you don't have that information already, because it really gets a lot of attention, and that urgency to buy is actually what gets people over the fence a lot of the time. Because when they know that the course is starting or the doors are closing on this date, they're actually forced into making a decision. And when it comes to decisions and making decisions, us humans are actually pretty lazy at it. I don't know if you relate to being indecisive. I'm a Libra, so we are famously indecisive, and I actually enjoy a good deadline being put in front of me. So I am forced to make a decision. Otherwise, I'd probably never decide on anything. And I think that as humans, we're all like that to some degree with some things. So that's why a live launch is so effective. But what if you plan out your first launch, it goes well, and then you're not launching for a few months, or maybe it's 6 months, however long you choose? What happens if someone does kind of pop up in front of you who is interested in your offer? Now, I'm going to share here exactly what I do in this situation, and this has actually worked incredibly well for me. And there is only really 2 situations where this has actually happened, and I'll talk a little bit more on why nothing else has really happened outside of this. Okay, so 2 situations. The first one is if I'm working with a client elsewhere in my business, like maybe they're in a group coaching program, or they've been a private coaching client in the past. As you know, I'm no longer offering private coaching. But what has happened in situations like that is I have a client in my business somewhere who actually has a need for another program of mine, but it's not included as part of the offer that I'm working with them in at the time. So I will sell it to them anyway. I will say, here's the checkout page. You're welcome to grab it now. And because you're a client of mine, you can just jump straight in. And there are no restrictions around that. And usually in that situation, they do purchase, and it's all unadvertised. So this is behind the scenes of my business. And I love a good behind the scenes sale, right? So I don't see any problem with doing this at all. Now, the next one is if I've had a lead come in to my business, they've had a conversation with me, and we've actually talked about the various ways they can work with me. And maybe we've got some higher ticket stuff in there, and we've got some more hands-on kind of offers. But for whatever reason, the course is actually better suited to them. That could be based on budget, or actually just how they learn best, or they don't want coaching, or whatever. So we've actually had that conversation, and we've decided that the course is the best fit for them for whatever reason. Then I also let them buy straight away, and I will give them the link to the checkout page, and I will say, you're welcome to purchase. Okay, so I like to call both of these back-end offers. They happen behind the scenes in your business, as they're only available to people kind of who are in the know, who are actually having conversation with you, who are already in your business in some sense, whether that's as a paying customer in another offer, or they are, you've had that conversation with them and they've come into your business as a lead but haven't worked with you yet. Now, the other more obvious way that you could sell your courses, right, is to have the course sitting on your website. And I mean, you could do this, but one thing I have noticed, and I know this for a fact, is that people aren't coming to your website to buy your course. Okay. We think that if we have it there, we may just get 1 or 2 people who are just cruising through your website. They're going to see your course and think that's a no-brainer, and they're going to purchase. We like to think that this is a reality, but the actual fact is it's not. People need that live launch, like we talked about before. They need urgency. They need the full-blown sales funnel to go from thinking about it to actually saying, I'm in. We need that extra push, okay? And that is why putting your course on your website is the biggest reason that I see people create courses and then not make sales, 100%. I actually recorded a whole episode on this topic, which is episode 5, and it's called Should I Put My Course on My Website? And I actually go through all of this in depth. So I recommend that you do go and listen to that if you're not sure why. I'll link it in the show notes so that it's easy for you to find. So the reality with online courses is that it is the live campaign, the urgency, and the sales funnel that's wrapped around the launch. That is what sells your course, not the course itself. If people actually bought courses straight off your website, then nobody would be live launching, right? There'd just be no need to it. And while that would be nice, we've got to understand that the way people purchase online courses is different from going onto an e-commerce store and just buying a product because we want a special treat or we need to replenish our supplies or something like that. So based on this, you don't need to worry about missing a sale in between launches because hopefully it's clear to you that it's very unlikely you're actually going to be missing out on sales anyway, unless they're people who are already in your world and then you just have the conversation with them. So I get that it feels like it's going to be an issue, but outside of people you're having conversations with, it's really not, okay? And if you're new to course creation, just get started with your first live launch. That is what you really need to be focusing on this point, and you can worry about the details around this kind of thing later. And if you are listening to this episode and you are an established course creator, you've already validated your offer by doing a live launch, perhaps you've live launched a couple of times, your audience is growing and your course is well suited to that self-study, can be sold at any time model, then it could be time to look at an evergreen funnel. So again, this does not mean just simply putting your website or your course on your website. That is not what an evergreen offer is. You need an evergreen funnel. So that requires, again, a proper strategy for it actually to be effective, to lead people from knowing that they have a problem, looking for a solution, and actually deciding to purchase. Now, one thing that I do want to address, because I can anticipate that some of you may be thinking this. So one thing I want to talk about is, we see all these offers on the internet. We just have to pop online for 5 minutes and we'll see someone selling something for like $47 or $97 or even as low as $7. And these are people who are selling these offers every single day. So you might be wondering, these people seem so successful. Why am I giving you the opposite advice? So firstly, you do need a relatively big audience for that strategy to work. So if you're starting out and have a smaller audience, you're actually much better off creating a signature course where one sale equals a much higher revenue amount for you, because it actually takes the same amount of effort to sell a higher price offer as it does a smaller priced offer. So pick the one that's going to give you the most bang for your buck in terms of effort. Now, that style of business where people are showing up every day online and selling low-cost digital courses, there's actually a whole strategy behind that. There's a range of ways that they're making money through the funnel, and what you're seeing on the front end is just simply the traffic generating side of things. But these people are also generally full-time creators and they want to be on social media a lot, and that's great. But if you aren't one of those people that wants to be creating content all the time and you don't really want to be on social media a lot, then live launching is actually going to suit you much better. Now, on the flip side, the lower cost digital product model could absolutely be a great strategy for you. But as I said, if you're getting started with online courses and you don't have an audience, or you've got a smaller audience that you're working on growing, you're actually going to get a much higher payback and a return on your effort by focusing on a signature online course. Sure, you can work on growing your audience towards that in the longer term, but I'd recommend you start making money as soon as you can with a signature course and doing a live launch and not worrying that you're going to lose sales by the doors not being open all the time, because I promise you, you simply are not. And if people are reaching out to you, then that is amazing. And as I shared with you today, that's what I do in that situation, and you can totally do the same. So I hope you enjoyed this quickie episode today. If you've got a question that you want me to answer on the podcast, I'd love to answer it in a future show. Just DM me at @LouBlakely_. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, course creators and go-getters. You're incredible, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe in your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. If you'd like to find out more about what I offer, head across to loublakely.com. See you next time.